and some who think they have the answers. They're guaranteed to keep you entertained, whether you agree or not. Politics Live with Joe Coburn. Watch on BBC iPlayer.
Disinformation.
There is no climate change.
You think you're winning.
Erosion of trust.
Fooling people in the most sophisticated ways. But it's because of you we get up in the morning and work through the night 24/7. So no matter how hard it gets, we'll always pursue the truth. The fight for truth is on.
This is BBC News. The headlines. Lebanon continues to be bombarded today after the capital suffered an intense wave of Israeli strikes overnight. Hezbollah rockets continue to be intercepted as they enter Israeli airspace. However, some have dodged defences and fallen in the country's north. After 2 days of torrential rain in central Bosnia, deadly floodwaters have started to recede, allowing a huge rescue operation to ramp up. Emergency workers are using search dogs to try to locate missing people who may be trapped under debris. Ex-owner and tech entrepreneur Elon Musk has joined Donald Trump on stage at a rally in Butler, Pennsylvania, where the former president survived an assassination attempt in July. Speaking from behind bulletproof glass, Mr. Trump described his would-be killer as a monster. And new hope for cancer patients going through immunotherapy as researchers look for ways to stop challenging side effects of the treatment and increase success rates. Hello, I'm Lauren Taylor. Now, as the crisis in the Middle East deepens, we're taking a look back at the events of the past few weeks and asking how we got to this point and what the violence means for the future of the region. BBC Arabic's Beirut correspondent Karine Torbey has the special report.
Ballistic missiles rained down on Israel. An unprecedented response by Iran after weeks of Israeli escalation, pushing the region to a dangerous new precipice. This is the story of how the past few weeks brought the Middle East to a dangerous new moment.
The status quo cannot continue. This requires a change in the balance of power on our northern border.
Hezbollah launched the first attack against Israeli positions last year on October 8th in support of Gaza. Israel retaliated. A year on from those exchanges of fire, the conflict has reached a new level. The 17th of September saw a new escalation begin. Pagers and walkie-talkies used by Hezbollah operatives exploded. Simultaneous attacks in supermarkets, on the streets, in cars and in homes across Lebanon.
The enemy has crossed all red lines.
Israel says it's intent on eliminating the threat of Hezbollah. Over 1,000 have been killed and many more injured, and almost 1 million displaced since Israel launched a huge wave of devastating airstrikes on Lebanon.
My siblings and their children were all killed here.
And then,
in the last hour, Israel has claimed to have killed the leader of Hezbollah, Hassan Nasrallah, in an overnight strike.
how did rapid escalation change the face of Lebanon and set the region on a dangerous new course?
Over the last year, Israel and Hezbollah have been engaged in a relatively low-level conflict following the Hamas attack on Israel. They exchanged fire across the border. But the speed and scale of what is happening now has been shocking and unprecedented.
It was an attack like something from a tale of espionage. It's the middle of September and people are going about their everyday lives when Pagers belonging to Hezbollah members explode across Lebanon in a coordinated and deadly attack. Hezbollah is prescribed as a terrorist organization by many Western governments. However, within Lebanon, Hezbollah has a significant role in the country's parliament and government. The organization had abandoned mobile phones for fear of being tracked. This attack showed those precautions had not been successful. The pagers were turned into weapons. Hezbollah members were hit by blasts in supermarkets, on the streets, in their cars, and at home, next to their children. People are killed and thousands injured, women and children among them. Most injuries affected the face, eyes, fingers, and stomach.
Incarcerated inside the eye.
I met Dr. Ilyas Warraq, an eye surgeon at the Mount Lebanon Hospital.
It has been a nightmare. Probably this is the worst day of my life as a physician. Unfortunately, we were not able to save a lot of eyes. I can tell you that probably more than 60 to 70% of the patients ended up with eviscerating or removing at least one of their eyes.
I was outside the hospital. Relatives waited for news of their loved ones. The shock and fear palpable.
There are also very pressing questions today on everyone's mind. First of all, what did actually happen? How did it happen? And second of all is basically, how is this going to affect the ongoing confrontation between Hezbollah and Israel? But what happened at this point is a major escalation of unprecedented level.
And it didn't stop there. The next day, as Hezbollah buried their dead, fresh attacks. We were there. In the panic and confusion, people asked us to put our cameras down.
This is a scene next to the funeral where the funeral was being held. And as you can see, people are gathering. We asked what's happening. They told us another pager blew up on a young man.
This time it wasn't pagers. It was the walkie-talkies of Hezbollah operatives.
Although Israel has not claimed responsibility for either attack, there is widespread belief in Lebanon that it is Israel that carried out both of them. Now, as Hezbollah and the country are still reeling from the shock, the main question is, what's next?
Whether this was a coordinated plan by Israel or not, these attacks were the trigger of what came next.
If you're just joining us, we are expecting to hear from the Hezbollah leader, Hassan Nasrallah.
2 days after the pager attack, Hassan Nasrallah, longtime leader of Hezbollah and closely aligned with Israel's arch foe, Iran, announced that the attack would not go unpunished.
The enemy has crossed all red lines.
Israeli airstrikes stretched further into Lebanon in an attempt to further diminish Hezbollah.
There seems to be no possibility of diplomacy getting through and de-escalating the situation.
The center of gravity is moving towards the north. This means we are diverting forces, resources, and energy towards the north.
So how did it reach this point? Hezbollah has been launching rockets and missiles at Israeli military positions since October the 8th last year, and Israel has been retaliating. Hezbollah called it the Gaza Support Front in solidarity with Palestinians there. After Israel launched a war in Gaza following the October 7th attacks last year by Hamas on Israel, Hezbollah's goal was to divert Israeli military resources away from Gaza towards the northern front with Lebanon.
We say to the enemy's government, army and society that the Lebanon front will not stop until the aggression on Gaza ends.
This exchange of fire has had a huge impact on civilians, with about 150,000 displaced on both sides. Israelis from villages like these want to return to their homes without the threat of attack. For Netanyahu, this was a key motivation for stepping up strikes.
Going back to something that we used to live that way is no longer an option. It's no longer an option that we are be under the threat of some guy in Beirut that would like to pull the trigger anytime he likes.
What's happened here in this area over the last year has ended one of the longest periods of relative calm between Israel and Lebanon.
The two countries have a long history of hostilities and wars. Israel occupied southern Lebanon for decades, and Hezbollah and Israel fought a month-long war in 2006. But this escalation felt different. There were real concerns with tensions in the Middle East so high. This conflict, unlike those before, could spill over and result in a bigger, more dangerous regional war. Israel's increased attacks on the Iranian-backed Hezbollah meant the two long-running enemies, Israel and Iran, were watching each other's moves closely. For Lebanon and its people caught in the crossfire, what is happening in their country runs deep in their collective memory.
A week after the Patriot attack, a further escalation rocked Lebanon.
As morning broke, it brought with it one of the deadliest days in nearly 20 years in Lebanon.
Lebanese officials say 490 people died on the first day of the intensified Israeli airstrikes. Tens of thousands fled their homes. Once again, destruction, devastation, and displacement.
I'm scared. Scared for my wife and 5 children. The situation is really difficult and scary. I don't know what's happening to us.
The warnings from the Israeli army became more widespread.
Now, starting this morning, the IDF has warned you to get out of harm's way. I urge you, take this warning seriously. Please, get out of harm's way now.
In a matter of days, hundreds of thousands had fled their homes in southern and even eastern Lebanon.
This is one of the main schools in Beirut turned into a shelter for the displaced from southern Lebanon. An official here told me that they are opening, on average, 1 extra school every couple of hours to deal with the very large number of displaced.
It's not just schools that were overwhelmed. Hospitals, too, have been struggling to deal with the wounded. Women and children among the casualties.
We heard a very loud noise. 2 strikes and we all flew. Each flew in a different direction. Both of my cousins were killed, and my father was killed.
This video published by the IDF boasts of killing Hezbollah leaders one after the other. Amidst all the ongoing airstrikes, Israel was systematically targeting and killing senior Hezbollah leaders, culminating in
We're in the office. We heard multiple explosions, one after the other. They were so loud, many of them. We don't know what was happening or where. It's in the middle of Beirut. And this is what we can see from distance.
This huge attack had a colossal impact. The target was Hassan Nasrallah, the leader of Hezbollah and one of the most prominent figures in Lebanon, backed by Iran. The killing of Nasrallah was an earthquake for the party, the country, and region. For this woman, the news was shocking.
Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu ordered Nasrallah's killing while at the UN. The IDF released this picture of what they say is that moment. His killing was a huge win for Israel. While at the UN, the Israeli leader made a vow to Hezbollah's backers.
I have a message for the tyrants of Tehran. If you strike us, we will strike you. There is no place in Iran that the long arm of Israel cannot reach. And that's true of the entire Middle East.
There was no mention of diplomacy.
Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei promised that the killing of Hassan Nasrallah would not go unavenged. But before any Iranian retaliation, Netanyahu attacked Iranian-backed groups in Yemen and Syria. And it didn't stop there.
Israel's military says its troops have crossed the border into southern Lebanon.
Israel launched a ground invasion into southern Lebanon, the first in 18 years, in what it called limited, localized, and targeted raids against Hezbollah to return displaced Israelis to their homes in the north. Despite Israel's massive blows to Hezbollah, this remains a very challenging operation. Israel doesn't only have Hezbollah to contend with.
Tonight at 6, as we come on air, missiles from Iran have been fired towards Israel.
On the 1st of October, the region held its breath.
Tonight's escalation comes in response to Israel's overnight invasion of southern Lebanon.
Almost 200 ballistic missiles were launched by Iran. The Israeli Defense Forces said most were intercepted by Israel's extensive defensive capabilities. But the IDF said some struck central and southern Israel, with one fatality.
There was a lot of booms. One of them, it was terrible. And when we came out, I saw all the disaster, what's happening. We're happy we're still alive.
The attack was widely condemned by the West, who called for restraint and de-escalation. But both Israel and Iran show no sign of backing down. The Middle East is still reeling from the Hamas attacks on the 7th of October last year. The horror of the last 12 months has been compounded in recent days. By heightened tensions and escalations, which have spread across the region with devastating consequences.
The region has never felt more dangerous or uncertain. Peace and resolution seem to have been abandoned. All sides are promising more attacks, further escalation. Here in Lebanon, the horrors of this conflict are reminiscent of the countless bloody and violent chapters in the country's history. People here have always felt they are living on the brink. Today, more than ever, uncertainty looms large as they wait for what's next. Something no one seems able to predict.
Karine Torbay reporting there. Now, a state of emergency has been declared in Bosnia-Herzegovina after flash floods and landslides have left at least 16 people dead. Towns and villages became submerged after an overnight storm caused rivers to burst their banks. Search and rescue work continues across the region, as our Balkans correspondent Guy Delorney reports.
For the older residents of Donja Jablanica, it's too much to bear. This is what's left of their village after floods and landslides swept through the streets and the houses where the residents were sleeping. The village mosque was submerged by the deluge of water, mud and rocks. Somehow the imam escaped with his family. Others weren't so fortunate.
From there, I heard a tremendous rumble, as if all the hills turned towards us. I also heard screams for a few minutes, and then all went silent. Then I thought everyone over there was dead.
And how should I feel? Losing 4, having no one anymore. My house is completely destroyed. There is no one. No one. What can I tell you?
Rescue workers have been searching through the inundated houses. British search and rescue specialists are among the international teams who've flown out to help their Bosnian colleagues. It's back-breaking work, but while a handful of residents remain missing, the effort to find them will continue. Floods also hit other parts of central Bosnia. Houses around Konjic were swept away, along with roads and bridges. That includes vital roads and railways between the capital Sarajevo and another key city, Mostar. But for now, most people are thinking about the human cost and how one night of heavy rain could have caused such a catastrophe. Guy Delorme, BBC News, Ljubljana.
An Mpox vaccination campaign targeting high-risk groups is underway in Goma, in the east of the Democratic Republic of Congo. The Health Ministry in Kinshasa says it's an attempt to curb the spread of the virus, which has killed close to 1,000 people this year. More than 200,000 doses of the Mpox vaccine have been donated by the EU and US. For more on that, here's the BBC World Service's Africa Regional Editor, Richard Kago.
Congolese health officials today launched the country's first Mpox vaccination in the eastern city of Congo. Well, the ceremony, which was presided over by senior government officials, now sets the stage for what will be considered to be a key effort in containing the outbreak that has spread across the country's 26 provinces, and also from the epicenter in the east of the country to more than 15 countries in the continent. According to the country's health minister, about 1,000 people have been killed since the emergence of a very deadly strain of Mpox was detected in the east of the country. Now, this is a very unique vaccination campaign because it's specifically targeted at people who are at high risk. So, for instance, those who have pre-existing conditions, those who are weak or immunocompromised. It's also targeted at health workers who are literally in the front line, and also sex workers as well, and people who are involved in cross-border trade, and anyone who's been exposed to a suspected case. So the exercise, which began in Goma today, will expand from the city, which is the regional city in the east of the country, to North Kivu province and South Kivu province, which have been quite affected by the outbreak.
Migrant rights charities are calling for Britain and France to reform their laws after 4 people, including a 2-year-old child, died trying to cross the Channel yesterday. The authorities said they were found unconscious and were likely trampled to death in 2 separate boats that had engine failures. More than 25,000 people have made the dangerous journey so far this year. Here in the UK, a new multi-million-pound research programme aims to discover why immunotherapy fails to work for the majority of cancer patients. It's seen as a revolutionary treatment, using the body's own immune system to fight disease, but more than half of patients see no benefit. Our health correspondent Dominic Hughes has more.
Immunotherapy saved Alex's life. He was diagnosed with melanoma, a dangerous form of skin cancer which then spread. Alex underwent a course of immunotherapy, helping his body's own defences to stop the disease in its tracks, but it was not without complications.
I'm completely clear that immunotherapy has saved my life. Without it, I would have died in 2019. It can come with side effects in certain patients. Those side effects can be a little bit difficult to manage. I wouldn't describe it as fun. I got through it. And I think one of the exciting things about the research that's going on in the field of immunotherapy is people really trying to work out how to make the treatments as effective as possible, but also as kind as possible for patients, because it's not just about treatment of the cancer, it's also about trying to maintain quality of life.
Immunotherapy is a cancer treatment full of potential, but so far its benefits have been limited. Even in melanoma, where immunotherapy is most successful, only around half of all patients respond to the treatment. This new study will initially involve around 6,000 patients, half of whom have already completed treatment and half who are just starting immunotherapy for breast, bladder, kidney or skin cancers. The study will try to identify why so many patients relapse or suffer really challenging side effects.
So what we want to achieve here, very simply, is to do better by cancer patients who can potentially benefit from immunotherapy. The purpose of this program is to take many measurements, both from tumor tissue and from blood, and over time, to better predict from the outset who should have this treatment, who should have an alternative treatment, who is at the risk of side effects.
One of the key areas of research will be trying to identify vital biomarkers, signs that tell doctors whether someone is likely to benefit from a given drug. They could help in both selecting those patients for whom the therapy is most likely to work, but also possibly open up new treatments like vaccines and cell therapies. Researchers say the project could speed up the delivery of truly personalised medicine. Dominic Hughes, BBC News.
Let's take you back to Lebanon and have a look at the live shot there as Israel continues to bombard the capital there, Beirut. There was an intense wave of Israeli strikes overnight and also another strike this morning. Hezbollah rockets also continue to be intercepted as they enter Israeli airspace. However, some have managed to get through. And we heard from the Lebanese officials today that 23 people have died across the country in Israeli strikes on Saturday, nearly 100 wounded. You can keep up to date with all the events happening in Israel and Lebanon, of course, and also Gaza on our live page. Plenty of detail there of the latest attacks there. Now it's time for a look at the weather with Sarah Keith-Lucas.
Hello. Whilst yesterday brought us some sunshine and temperatures as high as 18 degrees for a few spots, today is looking a little bit cloudier. For the rest of today, we've got quite a bit of cloud and some showery rain. There will be some blue skies, some brighter spells just breaking through that cloud at times, especially towards the east. Further west, it's low pressure that's dominating our weather, so that's moving in from the Atlantic and it's pushing these couple of weather fronts slowly northwards and eastwards. So quite a lot of cloud for most areas. For the rest of the day, I think the heaviest of the rain will be for southwest of England, Wales, perhaps Northern Ireland. Into the Midlands could be some heavy bursts too. Some brighter spells for the northeast of Scotland, perhaps eastern England as well, and temperatures ranging between about 13 to 17 degrees. Some of these showers into the evening hours could bring the odd rumble of thunder. Then the cloud and showery rain pushes northwards and eastwards overnight tonight. Clearer skies moving in from the south, but still some heavy showers, perhaps the odd rumble of thunder as well. Not going to be a particularly cold night with temperatures holding up between 8 to 12 degrees. Frost-free certainly to start the new working week. But Monday, still quite an unsettled sort of day. We've got a band of clouds sitting across parts of Scotland with outbreaks of rain. Further south, sunny spells developing, but some heavy showers. Again, potentially some thunderstorms pushing in from the southwest later in the day. But brighter skies than we've got out there today, and highs around 13 to perhaps 19, even 20 degrees. Still quite mild in the southeast. Tuesday, another unsettled sort of day. So again, we've got some outbreaks of rain across the northern parts of the UK, sunshine and showers towards the south, some of them on the heavy side, and temperatures still mild for the time of year, around 18, possibly 19 in the south, but starting to turn a little bit colder across parts of Scotland. Now into the middle of the week, let's take a look at this system. This is going to be the remnants of ex-Hurricane Kirk moving in, probably pushing down towards France, where we'll see some really wet and windy weather. Could be a bit further north though, so keep an eye on the forecast. I think for us, we're looking at another showery sort of day on Wednesday, quite breezy at times, and the colder air starting to push in, so only around 10 degrees for Lerwick and Stornoway, for instance. But still 15 or 16 for southern England in those sunny spells. But that colder air will continue its progress further south during the latter part of next week. So you can see the blue colours returning here, pushing away that mild air. So the next few days certainly looking unsettled. Showery rain for many of us, quite breezy at times. And then the temperatures tend to slip away as we look towards the end of this coming week. Bye for now.
It's a shame we don't have smell-o-vision, because I've just caught a whiff of frankincense, which of course